Right now, inside every single cell in your body, there's a molecule that's basically you. It's the reason you have your mom's eyes, your dad's smile, and that weird ability to curl your tongue that only half the population can do. Before we get started, check out the link in the description to download our ebook. It's 6 feet long, coiled up inside something 100 times smaller than a grain of sand. And if you printed it out, it would fill thousands of books. I'm talking about DNA. And today, we're cracking the code that makes you, well, you. So, what exactly is DNA, and why should you care? Here's the thing. DNA isn't just some abstract science thing you learned about in biology class and immediately forgot. It's literally the instruction manual for building and running every living thing on Earth. You, me, your dog, that banana you had for breakfast, we all run on the same basic code. And understanding DNA, that's not just cool trivia anymore. We're living in an era where people are editing genes to cure diseases, tracing their ancestry back thousands of years, and even controversially, designing babies. DNA has gone from a discovery in a lab to something that's reshaping medicine, technology, and how we understand ourselves. So buckle up. In the next few minutes, we're going to break down what DNA actually is, how it works, and why this tiny molecule is one of the most powerful things in the universe. Let's dive in. Okay, first question. What is DNA? DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, which, yeah, is a mouthful. But think of it like this. DNA is the ultimate storage device. It's a biological hard drive that contains all the information needed to build and maintain you. Now, DNA is a molecule. It's made up of smaller units called nucleotides, and each nucleotide has 3 parts: a sugar, a phosphate group, and something called a nitrogenous base. The bases are the important part. They're like the letters in the genetic alphabet. There are 4 of them: adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine, or just a TG and C for short. And just like letters form words and words form sentences, these 4 bases combine in specific sequences to create the instructions for everything about you. Your height, your hair color, whether you're a morning person or a night owl, it's all written in combinations of a T, G, and C, 3 billion of these letters in the human genome. 3 billion. That's longer than the entire Harry Potter series times 1,000. Now here's where it gets cool. DNA isn't just a straight line of letters. It's twisted into this iconic shape you've probably seen before, the double helix. Picture a ladder, then imagine twisting it like you're wringing out a towel. That's your DNA. The sides of the ladder are made of sugar and phosphate, and the rungs, the steps, are pairs of those bases we talked about. Here's the genius part. A always pairs with T, and G always pairs with C. Always, it's like a lock and key. This pairing is crucial. It's what allows DNA to copy itself. When a cell divides, the 2 strands unzip down the middle, and each half rebuilds its partner. It's like having a backup copy of every file on your computer, but way more elegant. And this structure, it was discovered in 1953 by James Watson and Francis Crick, though we have to mention Rosalind Franklin, whose X-ray images were absolutely critical to figuring this out, even though she didn't get the credit she deserved at the time. The double helix isn't just beautiful. It's functional, stable, and the perfect way to store the recipe for life. So DNA is a code. But how does that code actually do anything? Think of DNA like a cookbook, except instead of recipes for lasagna or chocolate cake, it's recipes for proteins. And proteins, they're the workhorses of your body. They build your muscles, carry oxygen in your blood, fight off infections, digest your food basically. Proteins do everything. Here's how it works. Stretches of DNA called genes contain the instructions to make specific proteins. Each gene is like one recipe in the cookbook. The language of DNA gets translated into proteins through a beautiful system. Groups of 3 bases called codons code for 1 amino acid. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. String together the right amino acids in the right order, and boom, you've got a protein. For example, the sequence ATG might code for the amino acid methionine. CGT codes for arginine. Chain hundreds of amino acids together, fold them up into complex shapes, and you've got a working protein. It's like going from letters to words, to sentences, to a complete story. Except the story is you. Alright, so genes make proteins. But how do proteins become you? Let's say there's a gene for eye color. That gene codes for proteins that produce pigments in your iris. Different versions of the gene, called alleles, produce different amounts or types of pigment. More melanin, brown eyes; less melanin, blue or green. That's a simple example, but most traits aren't controlled by just one gene. Height, for instance, is influenced by hundreds of genes, plus your environment, your nutrition, all kinds of factors. It's less like flipping a light switch and more like adjusting a soundboard with 1,000 knobs. And here's the wild part. You've got 2 copies of every gene, one from your mom, one from your dad. Sometimes one version dominates, that's a dominant allele, and sometimes both versions need to agree for a trait to show up that's recessive. So your DNA isn't just code, it's a mashup, a remix, a unique combination of your parents' genetic material that's never existed before and will never exist again, unless you have an identical twin. Then yeah, someone else is running the same code. Okay, rapid-fire fun facts, because DNA is wild. Fact 1, you share about 50% of your DNA with a banana. Yep, we're not that different from fruit. We're all distant cousins in the tree of life. Fact 2, if you unraveled all the DNA in your body and laid it end to end, it would stretch from here to the sun and back over 300 times. You've got about 37 trillion cells, and almost every one has 6 feet of DNA packed inside. Fact 3, only about 2% of your DNA actually codes for proteins. You know, the stuff that does things. The rest? Scientists used to call it junk DNA, but we're now learning it plays roles in regulation, structure, and evolution. Turns out, it's not junk at all. Fact 4, you're 99.9% genetically identical to every other human on Earth. That remaining 0.1%, that's what makes you unique. All the variation in skin color, height, talents, quirks, it's all in that tiny fraction. Pretty humbling, right? So why does all this matter now? Because we're living in the DNA revolution. Doctors are using genetic information to personalize medicine, testing your DNA to figure out which treatments will work best for you, or predicting your risk for diseases like cancer or Alzheimer's. Ancestry companies like 23andMe can trace your lineage back centuries, connecting you to distant relatives and ancient migrations. And then there's CRISPR, a gene editing tool that lets scientists cut and paste DNA like it's a Word document. We're talking about curing genetic diseases, making crops more resilient, maybe even bringing extinct species back to life. Of course, with great power comes great responsibility. Editing human embryos, designing babies. That raises huge ethical questions we're still grappling with. But one thing's for sure, understanding DNA gives us the power to shape the future of life itself. So here we are, DNA for simple letters, A, T, G, C, arranged in endless combinations, a twisted ladder of molecules just a few nanometers wide. And yet, it contains everything. The blueprint for your body, the echoes of your ancestors, the code that connects you to every living thing on this planet. It's the reason you laugh, like your grandma, why you can't eat cilantro without it tasting like soap, why you exist at all. DNA is ancient, billions of years old, but it's also deeply, uniquely yours. So the next time someone asks what makes you you, you can tell them, it's written right there. In 6 feet of code coiled up inside every cell. You're not just alive, you're a walking, talking masterpiece of biological engineering. And that's pretty amazing. Thanks for watching. If you learned something today, hit that like button and subscribe for more videos breaking down the science of life. Drop a comment. What surprised you most about DNA? And remember, you're 1 in 8 billion, but you're also made of stardust and ancient code. See you in the next one.